Okay, so I am also a client on Upwork, and I've probably spent like thousands of dollars hiring people to do stuff on Upwork over the years. And I am very opinionated about the proposals. The majority of the proposals are awful. They're awful. One is the positioning that you're saying for sure. Two,
Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. And today on the Freelance Spotlight, we have an amazing guest in the house, and her name is Ashton. Okay, so today we'll be talking about the creative world, freelancing, and how to manage clients, and a couple of discussions. We just follow the flow. My first question would be, what do you do and who do you do it for?
yeah, so I am a live illustrator. So I attend meetings and conferences and draw out in real time the conversation as it's unfolding. So I primarily did that in person before COVID, but now I'm primarily virtual. So I attend a lot of events and meetings and conferences virtually and show, instead of seeing me here, you would see a white screen and drawings kind of unfold during that session. And then when it's over, you have a visual representation of what was just said. So my client base is kind of very wide ranging. I do a lot of conferences, so a lot of conference organizers I work with, as well as companies that are doing like internal meetings, internal conferences sometimes, and sessions. And yeah, so it's kind of like wide ranging in terms of the client, like who hires me, but then also the industry that I work in. So I'm not really stuck on one particular industry. I can kind of work in any topic, really.
Amazing. So, the interesting part for me is the fact that you mentioned COVID and how it made you work remotely, like switch from the physical workout to a remote workout. And I'm very big on that. So, the next question I'm going to ask you is, how do you get your clients? How do you get clients?
Yeah, so when I started, so the thing about my work is, and I think probably for a lot of folks, is that people have to experience what it is that I do to understand the value of it. So when I show up, either in person or virtually, and I do the drawing, there's always a handful of people that will reach out to me and say like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love this. Are you free for my event that's coming up in a couple months or next week or whatever? So I get a lot of clients just from showing up and doing a good job. So that's sort of a huge part of it. I also get a lot of clients that come back year after year. So I've had some clients that I've had since like 2017, 2018 that just hire me for their event every single year. So just showing up and just doing a good job for the clients that you have and retaining them. It's a really important part to my business model. And then when I first started out, I wasn't showing up enough in front of groups of people where people could hire me, like I said. So I actually did quite a lot of relationship building and cold outreach. So honestly, I would just tell people I had a business and what I was doing. And I know that seems maybe kind of simplistic, but for the first number of years, I just really didn't tell anybody I was open for business. I didn't really tell people what I was doing. I think there's like a lot of being nervous or being embarrassed or just like feeling yucky or imposter syndrome about it. And I just had to make a decision that I was going to start just putting myself out there more, telling people that I already knew about what it is that I'm doing, but also new people. So I would research conferences in my area, just send them a really friendly message, something like, hey, I do this thing, maybe it would interest you. If you want to have a conversation about it, that'd be really cool. But I kept it very low on the hard sell, but more of just inviting someone to have a conversation to see if this is something that they might be interested in incorporating in their event.
Lovely, lovely. I love the fact that you made a switch from waiting for clients to come and meet you to the strategy
Yes.
of positioning yourself, like to positioning yourself, going all out to meet the clients. There's this aphorism that says, if the mountain don't go to Muhammad, Muhammad goes to the mountain. And I think that's what you're
Yeah.
doing. And then, so one of the strategies you use, you said cold outreach. How do you
Yeah.
go about the cold outreach to your prospective clients?
Yeah, so I don't do a ton of it anymore just because I'm busy, which I guess is a good thing. But when I first started, I took an online course it was kind of like a boot camp. So it was a bit more personalized where I could actually work with somebody to help me with this. And I just followed their formula. And the formula is very simple. There's the first part of an email, because I'm all email, like I'm not calling anybody, it's all email. The first part of the email is your connection to them. So let's say you research a conference or you research a company that you would love to work with, and it's almost like your love letter to them. So you would tell them what it is that you love about their company. Like maybe you use their products and you name the products that you use, or if there's something about their values that you really appreciate and love, you would mention that and how you connect with them, but make it less about you and more about them, right? And when you're writing the email, try not to be like I. It's all about them, right? So even just reframing a sentence so that it's about them, even though it could be about you, if that makes sense. So instead of say, I love this, you could be like, your company is incredible because of this, that kind of thing. So there's just like a couple sentences right up front. It's like a little love note to them, telling them and gushing about why you love them so much. And that shows to them that you've done your research, right? It's not just a random email, like you are connected to them in some way, that you already appreciate what they're doing, you love something about them. And then the next section of the email goes in to tell them a little bit about the value of your work. You're not telling them everything. So for mine, it's something like, when speakers are talking at a conference, I'm there drawing out the conversation, creating a visual representation of that information. Isn't that cool? That's basically what it says, right? It's short, doesn't have to be very long. For me, it's important to express my friendly tone because I want to attract people that are fun to work with. So by being casual and not saying like, dear sir, or dear madam, or sincerely Ashton, like I don't do any of that. So because I want to work with people that are like friendly and not like super serious. So that middle section is that sort of friendly tone. You're kind of just letting them know what it is that you're doing. And then the third section can be something like wrapping it all up. And like these are really short, right? Only like 1 or 2 sentences long. And that's sort of something like, it would be so fun to help elevate your messages at an event using this. And then you do a call to action, but the call to action is like really soft. It's like, I would love to have a conversation with you about this. Let me know when a time is good for you to have a chat. And then, because for me, for my business, I want to have a conversation with them. It's hard for me to I have like general pricing, but I want to know some more details about what it is that they're doing and how they're doing it so that I can price that properly. And I want them to meet me so they can see who I am and my vibe. And there's always a lot of questions that come up. And then it's just easy for me to answer them on like a 15 or 20-minute phone call or a Zoom call. So call to action is just really, it's not a hard sell. It's just like, hey, if this interests you at all, let's have a chat about it. And then my name. So that's basically what I've done in terms of like my cold outreach email strategy. And when I first started it, and then when COVID hit, I started doing it again because I had to completely switch my business on its head, like rebuild it from scratch basically. And yeah, I just, brought that out, dusted it off and started sending them again. And, nobody ever writes me back and says, never write me ever again. Like people are generally not like, either they respond and say, that's cool, let's have a chat. They either say, that's cool, let's have a chat. Or they say, no, thank you. Or they just don't respond. Very, 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 very few people have ever written me back and like got mad at me. Like, don't you ever email me again? Da, 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 da. No, very few, very few. So I think that's because and I wanted to mention that because I think that's a very common thing that people say because as an excuse to not send emails, like, oh, I'm scared someone's going to be mean to me. No, they're not going to be mean to you. You'll get 1 or 2, but so I've sent thousands of these emails, right? And because they're a little bit personalized, they do take a little bit of extra time and effort, but it's worth it in the end for higher conversion. Plus, I have a bit of an odd business, right? So I am kind of looking for those diamonds in the rough. And most of the people that see an email like that from me, they have experienced my work at some point in the past. Maybe they were at a meeting like 5 years ago and they remember and they were like, oh my gosh, all right, I remember I was at that meeting and they had that person drawing stuff, right? So it's less rare that someone would get a cold email from me that they have no idea what I'm talking about and they're still interested. It has happened, but it's not as common. So I am, looking for those like diamonds in the rough in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I love the part where you say like it's like a love letter to the company. Nobody in their right mind gets angry over a love letter. Like it's either a yes
Yeah.
or a no to the person asking you for love. But in this context, it is a professional relationship you're trying to build. And I think most organizations would respond to you professionally or not respond at all. You have nothing to lose. That means like when you do the code pitching the right way, that means like making it personalized for each organization. Like you have a
Yeah.
less likelihood of upsetting the person you are sending the message to. But when you have a spammy message that you just send to everybody, even I think I had to report a guy on LinkedIn last week. The fact that he sent it once, the message does not look like he's addressing me particularly, then it does not have any form of connection with me. But in the context which she has explained, it's way more acceptable. You would be more receptive to it. Then I love something else you talked about. Okay, the CTA, it's very important. CTA comes to fore in everything we do. Anything that has to do with pitching, proposals, writing your description, your profile, you need to have a call to action at the end. Then you can also slot in a call to action in between the love letter, like Ashton has described it to us. Then I love the conversation about relationship building. So it's important. This is not only for freelancers. This applies to freelancers, entrepreneurs, remote workers, and all. We need to consciously build a relationship with the person at the other end of the screen or person we approach, maybe like in a company or an organization. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that deep insight. Ashton, hope I'm pronouncing your name better now.
You're great. You're great. You're great.
My next question would be, what's your opinion or what's your impression about referrals? Do you get a lot of referrals for your job? And what do you do when, there are times when you don't get enough job. I don't know whether those times have completely passed for you, but
Yeah.
there are times when you don't have enough projects to work on. What do you do during those periods?
Yeah, so I feel like referrals for me are a bit different than maybe a lot of people, honestly. Referrals are a tricky one for me because let's say you're at an event and you see me doing my thing, and then they say, oh, I know a friend who has something. So they tell the friend or they tell their colleague or what have you, but the colleague wasn't there to experience it. So when it goes to a colleague, the colleague's like, what? I don't understand what it is that she's doing. So even though you can show the graphic to them of what I created, it doesn't have the same pull as if you were there. So because my work is an experienced good, honestly, a lot of times referrals don't work out because they hadn't experienced the value of it in the room. Sometimes they work out, but honestly, a lot of times I don't get excited when I get a referral, to be honest with you, because a lot of times they just want to know what the cost is. And then I tell them the cost and they're like, whoa, that's way too much, right?
Oh,
So unless you experience the value of the work, they cannot make the connection between what they think is the value, which isn't going to be all there because they weren't there. If that makes sense. So I think for a lot of companies, like, yeah, for a lot of freelancers and in businesses, like maybe referrals are a really, really good source of revenue and client base for them. But for me, it's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one. A lot of times they don't work out because they don't have that experience to pull from. And they're trying to then convince someone else probably to pay for it. You know what I mean? So, whereas if you're a video editor or you're a website designer, you can show, this was my beautiful website and this was the process of working with this person. It's a completely different vibe. Like they can kind of see what they're going to get and talk about that experience. But like people know why they need a website. People know why they need a video editor for the most part. They're like, I don't want to do this. I don't have the skill set. But for my work, it's a funny business and referrals aren't always the best source of client base for me, unfortunately.
Amazing. It sounds somewhat ironic, like say, because referrals is a major thing for most other professions. And I know someone out there can relate strongly with what you are saying. It's not every profession that probably referrals works perfectly for. But then it's important that you are able to present your business in a way somebody can put in a word for you. Maybe like tell you that, okay, she does this, then an organization that is interested in it can say, okay, let's come and pitch it to us. Even though they don't know the exact thing you would be doing, but then giving you that platform or that opportunity, somebody is stepping there to open the door for you, for those organizations that might need your service. So you can go to the organization and then pitch your service to them. Was there a time when you were on a 9 to 5 job, and how did you switch from being 9 to 5 to being a full-time independent contractor or entrepreneur, as the case may be?
My trajectory into running my business, I actually like to call myself more of a business owner than a freelancer, and there's reasons for that. I don't know if we'll have time to get into that today, but call myself more a business owner. And I was transitioning out of a 9 to 5 job because I moved and I had to leave that job because I wanted to move away from the city back to where I grew up. And I was looking for different types of things, and I don't have a lot of formal education. So my options were very limited. So I was kind of forced into trying to explore something different. And to be honest with you, when I moved back to my community, I didn't actually know a lot of people because I wasn't gone for that long, but sometimes it's hard to reconnect with folks because then they're gone. Like your peers are gone and now you have like nobody that you know, even though like you grew up in that community. So I started volunteering a lot and kind of seeing the different things that I did in my volunteer work. And it led me to learning about what it is that I'm doing now. So you never really know what kind of path that's going to take. But I was working a 9 to 5, but then I also had a couple of kids. So I had like 3 kids. So while I was like having kids, I was like, I know I want to do something. Like, I know I didn't really want to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, I really love being a mom, but I also wanted something that could like feed my soul and I could contribute to my family. But I wanted the flexibility of a job or a career that I don't have to worry about a boss, or I want to be able to get my kids off the bus. So looking for something that was fun to do, but also allowed me to have some flexibility. So yeah, it just sort of was those first few years was just sort of like a slow transition into trying to run this full time. I wasn't like I was in a 9 to 5 and I was like, I want to run a business. Like when I left my 9 to 5, I didn't know I was going to run a business. I was just like, I know I don't want to do this, but I don't know what I want to do. So I want to do something else, but I didn't know what that was at the time. So I just and when I learned about this work, nobody hires internal visual communicators or graphic recorders or live illustrators, right? Like no one's hiring for these roles. So you kind of have to start a business. And that actually worked out pretty good for me in the end.
Wow, that's great. I love your response to this, and I love your journey. Your journey from being a 9 to 5 to being a freelancer. Sometimes it's not crystal clear to you when you were at that point of moving from a 9 to 5 to
Yeah,
a
it
freelancer,
wasn't,
or in your
yeah.
terms, a business owner. There are a couple of terms like business owner, freelancer, entrepreneur, remote worker, independent contractor. They're still all over around the same thing, but then they are slightly
Yeah.
different. I use the word non 9 to 5 a lot. I know it's not a word everybody uses, but then I think like whether you're a freelancer, business owner, independent contractor, entrepreneur, you are not a 9 to 5 person, and those are the kind of
Yeah.
persons that the freelance spotlight is. The kind of person that are experiencing the kind of flexibility that Ashton talked about just now, that are experiencing the fun doing what they love right now. Yes, they may not
Yeah.
have seen that to be so much fun and to be so much flexibility. They don't forget the financial aspect of it. Like she mentioned, she has responsibilities, and her services presently is helping her meet her responsibility, giving her a higher degree of flexibility, and giving her more time for her family. And I think for me personally, that is why I'm not doing a 9 to 5 presently. One, I have more flexibility now. I have more time for my family. And I think if you ask many other independent contractors, business owners, people who started businesses, founders and all of that, those may actually be part of the things that triggered them
Yeah.
to living their 9 to 5 job. I'm not saying some people are caught out or perform best when they work for other people in a 9 to 5 job. But then if you are that person who is caught out to run things independently, like, but you are still afraid to make that move, I'll tell you, be like Ashton. Make that move. The whole road may not be super clear to you from the beginning, but I love she used the word, she said slowly, like that means like she said the exact words, I jotted it down, slowly transitioning. So it's not like I've seen someone like telling me she wants to leave her job for freelancing. I mean, you don't have to, except probably if you are sacked, you don't have to leave your job for freelancing. For me, at some point, I was doing my job and then doing freelancing as a side hustle. Then at some point, my freelancing begin to pay me almost the same salary I earned from my job. Then at some point, it started paying me even way more. So I knew it was time to leave the job to focus on freelancing. And with time, I'm still going to build businesses. Like, but for now, I'm at that level of freelancing on platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, and the rest.
Yeah.
So, have you attempted using any of these platforms I mentioned before, Ashton?
I have tried Upwork and I usually get like one job a year. It's like, it's very random. I have because my business is so niche, some people will go on there and message me, but it's not for my style of work. It's not quite. Plus, I'm expensive. So a lot of people don't want to pay what I want to receive. So I think the sticker shock of what I want to charge for my work doesn't always match someone who's looking to pay, $10 an hour for, a graphic. So it's a lot of time it's not a match for me, but it was a good place to kind of start putting my feelers out there and do a few little jobs for not a lot of money just to kind of get experience. It's better than giving away your time for free, even if it is only a little bit of money. But I try to highly encourage people to go off those platforms and kind of see what you can find for your own client bases and surround yourself with your competition. Might not be a very common suggestion, but look for the evidence out there. So for me, I started surrounding myself with live illustrators from around the world, and I would attend online things and in-person conferences for people who are doing what I'm doing, but have been doing it for a long time and have very successful businesses. And I don't view it as competition. We're not really competitors because the majority of them don't live anywhere close to me, so it doesn't really matter. Like, if someone finds my website or someone finds their website, like it doesn't matter to me. So if you're, let's say, a graphic designer or a website designer, find other website designers and have conversations with them, like even like pay them to talk to you or take them for a coffee, like honor their time and pay them for their time, just to like talk to them about how they run their business, because you'll learn more from someone who is considered a competitor than spending a bunch of time on Fiverr trying to do something for like little to no money, if that makes sense. And yeah, like you find the evidence, look for like, because you could look for lots of reasons not to do it, and you could talk to people who are struggling, but don't talk to those people. Find the people that have, especially for the type of business that you want to run. Like, I don't want to have an agency. I don't want to manage people. So I look for people who are just doing their thing by themselves, but have a nice client base and are doing well, right? Find the people that, if you're a website designer, let's say, find another website designer that's just like 6 months or a year ahead of you, just like a little bit ahead of you, and find out some things that they learned. And yeah, I feel like something like that would be a better use of your time, because you can learn those lessons rather than filling up your time with a bunch of client work that doesn't pay very well. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like I find this very
Yeah.
valuable. I find this very valuable. And as in you speaking to the audience back at home, so like you being a life illustrator, not seeing other life illustrators as competitors, but people you can collaborate with. So for me also, like I collaborate with a couple of other persons like in my field, like the people I feel I can learn from and they can also learn from me, that we can exchange it. Because one thing matters on the table of collaboration: mutual value from
Yeah.
both parties. So it's important you bring value to the table when you want to collaborate with other persons who do what you do,
Yeah.
even if you are not at their exact level.
Yeah, and like to go back to the referral comment, like if you have relationships, I keep using website designer as an example, so let's go back to that. If you have relationships with a bunch of website designers either in your community or around the world, now if they can't do something, they can send it your way. You know what I mean? So that can be a really good sense of decent referrals, because if they know someone who is willing to invest in their website, but that one person got really, really busy that month and this person really wants it done, then they have someone that they know they can trust, because I don't want to send like clients that I can't work with to someone I cannot trust they're going to do a good job. So, there's that too to consider. You're not doing it for that. You're doing that to learn, but there's always going to be something. Like relationships will always pay you back no matter what. And you build relationships based on expecting nothing in return, and it's like a nice surprise when it works out.
Yeah, impressive. I love that. Then let's go back to the talk about Fiverr and Upwork. I was having a discussion with someone, I think on Saturday, and the person asked me, what do I do presently? I was on a 9 to 5 before, and I said Upwork. Although I said freelancing, that I freelance. Although I should have explained better. The conversation didn't flow in a way that I should start giving an elevator pitch. So I just said I freelance for now. But then I think the person started viewing it from the perspective of the $5, $10 kind of job. I was like, no, like I earn thousands of dollars. So I'm saying that to say this. Like you said something recently, like if you're getting a $10 job offer on a platform like Upwork, $10 per hour job on Upwork, it might have to do with positioning, how your profile is structured, and a couple of other things. So because like I know you can have we have people earning as high as $100 per hour on Upwork. I'm a top rated plus on Upwork, and what that suggests is that the lowest I have earned in the last 1 year is $10,000. Do you understand? So then I have earned way more to maintain my badge. I feel like you might need to give Upwork a new chance. You might not get many jobs, especially you said your service is expensive. There are people who have earned $2 million, $1 million. I reviewed a guy, Ayake, on my profile. He has earned $600,000 on Upwork. He's a UI UX designer. Do you understand? So
Right.
what I can deduce from this conversation is that your service is highly premium. So so present your account to reflect that, and then you will get people. You'll be surprised that the same. I can't speak for Fiverr. I use Fiverr too. But on Upwork, the same service that some persons are charging $20 for, some other persons are on that platform charging $50. There are some other persons on that platform charging $120 per hour for that same
Yeah.
service. So I think it's about positioning. So don't give up on the platform. For me,
Yeah.
I have my clients on Upwork, and I have other clients that I work for that are not on Upwork, and we work on retainer basis. So I can be sure that even if no new gig comes on Upwork, I still get jobs from outside Upwork.
Okay, so I am also a client on Upwork, and I've probably spent like thousands of dollars hiring people to do stuff on Upwork over the years. And I am very opinionated about the proposals. The majority of the proposals are awful. They're awful. One is the positioning that you're saying for sure. Two, they're not personalized at all. I explain what I need, and then I know it's just a copy and paste. And I have my face on there, my website's on there. They obviously didn't go to my website, and they say, "Hey, sir." I'm not a sir. Don't say, "Hey, sir." Anytime that someone says, "Hey, sir," I just automatically down thumb it. No, like you didn't even take the time to click my website, which I gave you to click on it, and my face is the first thing that you see on my website, right? So to me, there's like a few red flags. That's one of them. If they don't say, "Hey, Ashton," it's a down flag, because to me, that tells me they know nothing about me. They didn't care at all to get to know me at all. It drives me insane. And if you could just get one job on Upwork, for me, honestly, I have a really time hiring people that have like $0 earned. That I really struggle. Like I want to give someone a chance, but sometimes I just need something done, and I need someone, and I'm okay to pay someone $50, even though there's a whole bunch of people that say they'll do it for $5. I'll pay the person that has a good rating, and even though they're more expensive, I would rather hire them. So you don't want to be the cheapest. If someone says their budget's $100, don't say you'll do it for $5, right? right? Say you'll do it for 100 or more, right? Like don't, because to me, that tells me that you don't value your time. And I want to hire people who value their time and that consider themselves an expert and that they're not this like race to the bottom. That drives me insane. One time for my book that I wrote, I hired my designer off of Upwork and she was the most expensive by far. She was the most expensive person on that had sent a proposal. And I told her that. And I said, and I still hired you because I loved her vibe. I saw her work. I thought she would do a good job. And it was less about the money. It was what I wanted to make sure that I got what I really wanted. And I was okay paying way more than what all the other people were proposing. And I'm like a small business, right? So you can't necessarily make assumptions like, oh, she's a small business. She probably doesn't have the money. I'm like, no, I know that I want this done really well. This cover is going to be extremely important to me and I want it done well. And I'm happy to pay, a premium for that. There's a few things that drive me crazy about Upwork that hopefully people can take. I saw you like woohooing over there a little bit. So I know that stuff resonated with you, but just a few things from the client side of things that drive me a little crazy when it comes, haven't been able to hire people on Upwork for really simple tasks because no one has passed my my filtering. And I don't feel like my filtering is that inappropriate, It's just, I just require 30 seconds of homework on their part. And if you do that, then you'll get to the top of my list for sure.
Yeah, Alan, I really love that you touched on this. So if you scroll through my channel, these are the things I teach freelancers. Like a bulk of like about 2,000 subscribers I have as at the time of making this video. Most of them are freelancers or people who are frustrated with trying to get jobs on Upwork. And sometimes when I check the profile, sometimes I see the profile picture looking awkward, and this person, I see their other pictures looking nice. Like something as simple as that. People writing idea. What is idea? When you can just check the previous project the person has worked on and find the name of the person. So these are some of the things I've teach. So when I call you Ashton, it's more personalized. So when you were mentioning it, and God, goodness, it sounds like, oh yeah, this is good. So now we are hearing from a client. I think maybe we might need to reschedule another episode. Yeah, where I question you more. We might even need to do maybe like 2 or 3, like because like I know we might have an episode where people come online to ask questions, because like most times on the channel we talk about freelance clients, this is what you do. But then although we have one of our past guests, Anthony Moyer, is also a client on Upwork. So like sometimes it's very good to hear the perspective of the client so you can know what you're doing wrong as a freelancer and what is expected of you. Yeah. So lovely. Thanks for sharing that. Then just to be sure I add you right, you emphasized on the need for Upwork freelancers to personalize. That means like don't just do copy and paste of the proposal you have, sending it to all clients on Upwork. Personalize it for that specific client. It might take you more time. Just the same way Ashton said when she was still doing code pitching, that she would take her time to construct it for that specific client. Then for freelancers to take your time, if you are sending a proposal for just one job a week, although I don't encourage one job a week, but if you are so busy that you can't send many, you can send just one. Send that one, like take your time to research that client, check their website, if there's an about us session, you might even suggest things that can make the client better. Then I love your talk about it should be about the client, not about you as a freelancer. You should not start I'm an expert at this, I've done this. No, don't talk about you, talk about the client. And I think I've emphasized that a lot on the channel, and hearing Ashton talk about this is super amazing. Then you also mentioned that don't settle for less. So there are freelancers who think the only way to get clients to hire them is by charging the lowest amount. Sometimes when you charge maybe $5 for a job, every other freelancer is charging $50, $40, $70 for. It gives the client an impression that your service might not be excellent. And the objective of the client, please correct me if I'm wrong, the objective of the client is quality and excellence. If it means they have to pay more, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They want it done right the first time. They don't want to have to hire you. They didn't do, or they hired someone and they didn't do a good job and now they need to find someone to fix the problem, right? And I find Upwork, everything, like I know for me, I'm maybe not the ideal client because usually when I'm on Upwork, it's something I need done like right away. And I specify that in the thing. Like if you can't do this like this week, then please don't apply, right? Because then like if people have very specific guidelines in there, do not apply. If they're like, oh, my budget's $10, don't apply and waste your credits because that person doesn't care about the quality. They just want to get it done for $10. You know what I mean? So it's don't even like get emotional about those types of posts. Just pass on them. Like, nope, not worth my time, not worth my time. Because there's going to be people like me that like, I'll pay you. I want to pay you well for something that I want done and done quickly. And I know I'm paying a premium because I want it done quickly and I'm okay with that. But some people on there, unfortunately, clients, they want everything. My husband calls it like a stick of gum. Everybody wants it just for a stick of gum. And like you can't pay your rent with a stick of gum. And so just don't even bother applying to those jobs. If people have a very like, I will not pay any more than $20 for this thing, and it's like a $200 thing, then don't even worry about them. Don't get emotional about it. Just be like, nope, not the right person for me, and move on and just apply for the things that are a good fit.
Super interesting. That's super amazing. I have personally learned a lot from our conversations so far, from learning about love letters to personalizing. Thank you so much for being on this freelance spotlight today, Ashton. If you have followed us through till this point, please write thank you, Ashton, in the comment section so she can know that we really appreciate wealth of experience that she has shared with us, and so she can know that she's coming back here to come and explain some things to us from the client's perspective. Today we spoke more about our services and we're only able to talk about the client perspective for a bit. Oh, thank you so much.